Conference for South Asia competition and world cinema. This is a composite panel consisting of 2 films from the South Asia competition and 2 films from our world cinema section. I will now introduce the filmmakers on this panel, and they can take their seat. First up, we have Miss Leesa Gazi, who is the filmmaker and the writer and director of Barir, Naam, Shahana, the house named Shahana. Could you please take a seat? Next, we have Mr. Fidel Devkota. He's the director of the Red Suitcase from Nepal in South Asia competition. Thirdly, we have Mr. Selman Nacar from Turkey. His film Hesitation Wound is playing in the world cinema section. And last but not the least, Miss Sepideh Farsi, who made the Siren, which is also in the world cinema section. I'm Srikanth. I'll be moderating the panel, and we'll be opening it up to questions soon. I want to begin by thanking all of you for presenting your films here. We are really, really proud that these films are presented at Jio MAMI. So I wanted to begin by asking a general question about your films. They are all international co-productions between multiple countries, and some of you are also kind of divided between 2 countries. There's a place of residence and the place of origin and so on. So I wanted to understand your insights about international co-production at large. Is it the reality that non-mainstream filmmakers have to live with, or does it kind of pose certain disadvantages? Any thoughts on what international co-production brings to your works?
Good morning. I think we cannot make the kind of films that we make without the international co-productions. For sure, I started by self-production. I mean, self-producing my films, and then in France. But really, a film like The Siren would not be possible to exist at the same level without the collaboration. Now. In my case, it was mainly a European co-production, but it can also, happen. I mean, even if, I have to say that, for instance, the Doha Film Institute also came in at a very late stage, and it was not the same level as the other. But it's all of these participations are important because we're making films. I think I'm willing to listen to my colleagues' feedback, but I have a feeling that most of the films that are shown here in MAMI are films that are fragile and are very peculiar and art house films. So it's very important.
For me, it's the reality, because I have been living in the UK for the last 23 years, and my root is in Bangladesh, and I know Bangladesh with all my existence, and Bangladesh. I hold Bangladesh in my body, in my thinking, in my dreams. So make this kind of film. And since I have a small arts organization, and to make my story to come alive, I have to have that co-production involved. Otherwise, as my colleague said, it would. I don't think I could make this film without it. So I think that for filmmakers like us who live abroad, who live away from their home country, is essential to have that connection, to have those kind of co-production and co-producing support. I think it's very key.
I think, as my friends say, it's really important for many sense, and I'll tell specifically why it was important to me. But I want to say, if there would be an option to do films without co-production, that would be much easier, because it's not easy also. But it's just not possible for many reasons. I agree with what they say, and I will add, for example, for me, there's an artistic, thing about it, because, for example, I wanted to work with a DP who is from Romania, and I wanted to do the posts in some countries other than Turkey. So like naturally, if you find producer from those countries, things will be easier for that. So, for example, our film was a Romanian, France, Spain and Turkey co-production. So I did in every country something, because sometimes what you do is like you try to apply anywhere and then you get money, then you start to think, oh, how can I spend that money for what? But for my case, I already know like which people to collaborate. So specifically we apply to those countries funding, and then it was just a natural collaboration. So that's why I would like to just add that international co-production also somehow affect the artistic perspective of the film, which might has advantage and disadvantage, but I mostly had felt good about it, because you kind of like see the different perspective on your project and you can get feedback too. So overall it was a good experience for me.
Good morning. Yeah, I think we live in the globalized time, and to have especially as an independent filmmaker, when you make films only because you have right friends at right places or right countries, in my case, because we had co-production in Sri Lanka, and these friends made it possible, not because of the financial things, but because of the technical things. And I think we have to accept that helps coming from anywhere. We have to take, especially when you are doing independent films.
Thank you. I have specific questions about the films, but I just want to dwell on this question, because as films and filmmakers become more international, the stories are becoming more and more local. Your film is set in Abadan, your film is set in rural Bangladesh, and your film is set in rural Nepal in the hills, and your film is set in Ushak, that is also far from the megalopolis. So is there, what is your kind of idea of, is there a need to say very rooted stories to kind of remain like close to your roots, or is that just what the material or the story that you're writing demands? Is there like a conscious choice of going very, very local and ethnic when you're making films?
I think when we make films, or I make films, I start from what's closest to me. So to reach out, I guess the more specific we are and the more personal, the more we can reach out, because it is rooted and it's grounded. If you, I had actually, I think my very first feature project was something very peculiar and very abstract. And then in a workshop, I was working with Makaviev, the late great filmmaker, and he told me, "Have you lived this story?" And I was like, "No, not exactly." And he said, "Try to reformulate, think about it. It has to be something, more." And I kept those words, and I'm not saying, of course, art is there also to be for abstract forms and for other stuff. But in these cases, where it's interesting that all four of us have put our stories, grounded our stories in something very specifically locally rooted for us, and I think it helps because. We humans, we share, despite the differences, we still share the most important things. The common factor is very, very large. So that's why it becomes relevant to others who live very far from us, I guess, in that way.
Thank you. For me, what the story demands, and this story is about a woman from a small town in Bangladesh, and so we set that location in a kind of we call it Mofosol Shahor, small town. Another reason was because it is set in the 80s, and it is very difficult to have that time on screen with a budget like independent budget is almost unachievable. So we wanted to have a town that holds that time, still holds that time. And so we shot this film in Kumarkhali, Kushtia. And one part of Kumarkhali, just it feels like it is stuck in that time, in the 80s and early 90s, and with that innocence of small town, and without any kind of still the store hoarding is hand painted, that kind of thing. It's still there. So we when we were scouting for the location, that particular place was ideal for us. For budget and for for what the story demands.
For me, I think our films are extension of who we are, and because I was born in a rural village, and the rural setting was very close to me and who I am, and that really came out naturally in that sense. So it's not the romantic idea of living in a rural village, but the reminiscent of my childhood, so to say, and that's how the film was set in a rural village.
I also shot my film in the city that I was born in. So, and in my film, other than like many things, I really wanted to explore the relationships between people in the small city setting, because the story that I wanted to tell, for example, cannot take place in a big city like Istanbul, because the relationships are different, there. So that's why it had to be in a small city. And I think this is just coming naturally, from the stories that we want to tell, and that are related with, as my friend says, to us, like who we are and what we want to tell. And I think these decisions, at least for me, like coming intuitively, I never thought that like I should go local or whatever, also I don't know this kind of things. It's just like something intuitively is coming from you that you want to tell. And if you believe in that, if you want to tell it, no one let you not to tell it. You just want to tell it. So once you have that idea, you also don't know if this is good for international market or not, like going local, global, whatever. Like these things comes later, at different stages maybe, but what makes you to start the story is something very intuitive, I think.
Before I go, into the details of the films themselves, if we have any questions from the press, we could, begin with that.
Good morning, everybody. My name is D.P. Mishra. I am film critic. I would like to quote a comment made by Fidel Devkota, that who we are. Just, I'm not yet finished. And especially there are two parts of cinema. One is front the camera, another is behind the camera. My question is behind the camera. That particularly I want to know co-production, international co-productions. There are three priorities must be there. One, story. Second, finance. Third is a very important aspect, human values. Just everybody is having their own plot, stories. I want to know why and how you decide the priority for the international co-production. I love to hear all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question is very philosophical, and that I think I also have to answer quite philosophically in sense, our films, through our films, we try to explore who we are. And I think this quest will go on as long as we make films. So I cannot definitely give a particular answer about it, but again, my quest through my film is to find out who I am. Now I live in Europe, and I was born in a rural village, and most of my childhood I lived in capital city, so I have been traveling everywhere else, and also my identity is in a way fluid, in a sense. That's what we all have, so coming back to your questions about co-productions, and those 3 points you made, yes, it's true, but also what is true is again, you have the story first, and what some stories demands some special collaborations. In my case, my story was set in rural Nepal, and there are a few things that I could do and I could not do. And also, for example, if we go looking for money and everything, we have to travel all around. And in my case, I did not have time to travel around and go to those systems. So my film was basically, when I wrote the script, I circulated it around, and then I have friends from India, Sri Lanka, who said, okay, this is what we can do, this is how we can do together. And it's basically my friends from 15-20 years who came in, because these are the friends that I reach out for. And we did not have the luxury of time to go abroad in really other senses. So because this film has to be made in certain time, if you have watched the film, it has certain themes. Yeah, so I could not really collaborate, even though I wanted, but with teams what I already had. And how they contributed, my producer sold his car to make this film, because that's how we have no state support in Nepal, and my Sri Lanka, the moment when we were making films was almost going bankrupt. So there was no money, but still we had the fire in us to tell the story that we wanted to tell, and also what we have to accept is, South Asia, we have lots of talents, and it's just that right opportunity is what we are waiting for, and these kind of collaborations really brings the best out of us, and we try to showcase the talent what we have here.
Problem they faced. Devika Rani Himanshu Roy. Devika Rani, she was the first Dada Saheb Phalke Award winners. And in Indian panorama, she is the first lady
And the main thing is,
and it's a very common factor you had told.
Yeah.
About that car, that I recollect that incident. Actually, I have written a book also, The Great Masters of Indian Cinema.
Okay. Yeah, and if we don't tell our story, who will tell it? So that's the point. And the urgency, we have to tell our story is there. Nah? So we have to find, like Truffaut said, if we have to rob a bank, we'll rob a bank to make a film.
Okay, do we have other questions? Yes.
If you don't mind, Leesa would like to speak something on that. My questions.
Sure.
Because you are from the Bangladesh.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your question. I just want to add that, as Fidel said, that, the desperation to tell what we want to tell, we go beyond our, comfort zone to make that happen. And the journey filmmakers make to tell their stories is so difficult sometimes, especially for independent filmmakers, that I can tell from my experience that I for this film I gave all my saving, and I had co-production, but that didn't make up for the entire production. So we do things which maybe maybe hard to understand why we do it, but this is the desperation to tell our stories. And absolutely, if we don't tell our stories, who would? And every film that we make has elements of our own existence, our own experiences, and our own beliefs, and the story we would like to tell. So I think that these all things, seep into our endeavors, and it will continue to do so, I think.
Myself, Irfan Jamiawala. I'm from News 360 and a Master of Mass Communication from Jamia. Sir, you told me who we are. It's a very spiritual question. That is what is the difference between who we are, who am I? Can you explain it? My thought is very different. I thought you are very near to how to change our society through a spiritual thing. This is one. Second thing, I saw your film. Second thing, your thought is how to change our society through film, television, theatre, and radio and performing art. Is it okay? Is it your thought?
No, sir. For me, I'm not here to change society. As I said, I do my films because it's exploration of who I am, what I'm made of. And I'm asking a difficult question to myself through my film. And I'm not here to preach because your life is just fine the way it is, and I'm not to interfere in your own thoughts. But what I do through my films is I want to provoke your thoughts as well. And maybe you go home and think, what was that, or what is it? And that's it.
No, so what is your aim and object as a filmmaker? I thought your thought and everything, I thought you were very near to social ethics and norms through your film. So what is your aim? Because you don't have, I'm not interested in particular change our society and all the things. The film is the part of society.
Yes, sir, it is part of the society. But
this is your moral responsibility. You have to change all the social norms, ethics through your film.
No, sir. I do not agree on that because I have to differ. Because for me, ethics and morality for me is different than it's very relative. So how am I or who am I to tell you what to do? that I cannot, because I'm not here to impose my values to somebody else's value. Because I respect, we have to respect each other's
What
stand.
is the meaning of who we are?
I think it'll be helpful if we stick close to the films, because I think these are very...
No, that is
interesting
the
questions,
very, is the spoken to me.
Yeah.
Okay, this is who we are. Who we are,
Yeah.
we are searching since last 1,000 back. Ki, who am I? That is, the question origin with who we are.
Yeah. So,
That is, if we are as a filmmaker,
Yeah.
you know very well ki who we are, who am I. If he is searching something, is the spiritual thing, that is different thing.
Yeah, but like the quest of understanding who you are, if you realize that moment, you are enlightened. And I'm not enlightened.
That is lastly, finally you have come on a spiritual thing, na?
no,
That is okay, na?
I just want to bring back...
Thank you, nice dear, nice film that is taught, and you have to keep in mind, we are a young filmmaker, we are from film school, we have responsibility we have to change our society through film and television and theatre.
No, sir, I don't.
So we have, that is, I'm a master's in particular in this industry. And all the people from this industry, I have started my news channel, News 360, in the part of this is sister concern. So that's why my thought, even he is talking about the Divya Rani and everything, the filmmaker and first lady who is from Indian film, all people, even Satyajit Ray, Foucault, everything thought is same. Thank you, dear. Nice making film. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I just want to bring the discussion back to the films at hand. So I want to start with you, Sepideh. So your film, The Siren, is an animated film set in 1980, around the beginning of the Iran-Iraq war in Abadan. And the first attacks start, and the story follows the life of a boy who chooses to stay back. So I wanted to ask you, it's a very grim and very hard subject, but you're treating it through animation. Could you kind of discuss the choice of the medium of animation and this combination of very dark subject with a medium which is associated with children and a more light-hearted subject? So, yeah, animation.
Yes, of course. The Siren is my 15th feature film, and I have a few shorts as well. So I've explored most of the existing formats of the moving image so far, mobile, cell phone shooting, Super 8, 16, 35, whatever, and digital, of course. But for this particular subject, right from the beginning, I knew that animation was the medium. Now, I do not draw myself, so it was indeed a very big challenge for me to, I never studied animation, never studied film either, but it doesn't matter, I make films. So the choice was clear because animation gives you this distance that you need in order to confront certain subjects that otherwise would be too harsh to show in a real live or live action shooting. I'm not saying that the war films are impossible to make, and this is not a war film, the backdrop is a war, but it is how to see the war through the boys, the teenagers' eyes, and how to show also that it's always possible to make a choice. That's who we are. To go back to that question that we're gonna, in the sense that even when we think we're in a situation that we have no choices, there's always ultimately a yes or a no to some option. And so this, plus the fact that, as for instance Leesa was saying, in 1980 Abadan does not exist anymore. I did not, I wanted a very detailed film, historically very precise for the backgrounds. And I know that it's not possible to do that. First of all, I cannot go back to Iran. Secondly, it's impossible to recreate in studio. It would be a huge production with VFX and all, and it would be too imposing to show the subtlety of the feelings that I wanted to show. Hence the choice of the animation.
Your film is in certain sense timeless because you mentioned that the place where you shot felt that it was stuck in an era. So it could actually take place anywhere at any time. So the house named Shahana is about a young Bangladeshi woman called Deepa. She is married off to a person living in a much older man living in the UK over telephone in a very brilliant scene. And the whole film follows her attempt to reclaim her life. So I wanted to ask you about why did you think that this film deserved to be told now? How did you come to this film?
As I said before, that the films we make, hold elements of ourselves. This particular film, house named Shahana, is actually reflective of my journey. I was a divorcee in the in early 90s in Bangladesh, and what I went through during that period, the intolerance, the prejudices, the stigma attached to a divorcee woman. They are almost outcast in their own family and society. And that, it's not me. I have friends who went through the same kind of, not the same, but the kind of similar trajectory of life, and I have seen women that they suffered infamy, they suffered injustices, but how they fought against it silently. Even going out at even going out in the evening to have a cup of tea at a tea stall is a rebellion act. So that is, I always have problem with that. When even now, when like 4 or 5 years ago, my niece was growing up, and when she said that let's go out on a rickshaw ride, I was like, why? It's like, oh, in this way I could go out in the evening. It's painful, it's heartbreaking. So I wanted to tell those stories that sometimes what happened is that these things happen, and someone next to me don't even realize it's happening because it's not touching them. Like for Barir Naam Shahana, a very good friend of mine, a male friend of mine, very progressive, he was saying, really? Does it really happen like that? He was talking about a particular scene, and I was laughing, and I was like, it happened to me. And things happen surrounding us all the time, because we are not, we are not like in the receiving point. We sometimes do not see it happening. So I wanted to tell those stories. I wanted to celebrate those women who actually, just for the sake of their own life, they had to fight. They had to reclaim their life back, and it is based on actual events, and I think that this film is reflective of so many South Asian women who had gone through that experience in life.
Your film, The Red Suitcase, it's very hard to discuss the film without giving too much away. But let's say it's a film about migrant labor, and the film follows. It's a eerie road movie that follows a delivery worker who's entrusted with a big package that he has to deliver to a very remote place in Nepal, and the film follows his encounters on the road. It's a very, very contemporary film because, it doesn't really spell out the events, but it touches on a very contemporary tragedy that happens in the world, and that was on full display during the pandemic. So I wanted to know how you came at your subject about Nepali workers working in the Middle East, for example.
It's about a Nepali worker, but I would not really limit to just Nepalese workers, because it's about migration and immigrants all around the world. Because we have to remember and appreciate the work that immigrants have done for the civilization of the mankind. And this is, in a way, a tribute to all the immigrant workers all around the world. And this particular issue started, during the lockdown. I was stuck in my apartment in Berlin, and the news, you look around, people dying everywhere. And I thought to myself, what if I die here now? And what will be my journey back home, dead or alive, in whatever form? And that was the sparking point where I said, okay. And then as I was watching the news back home, about Nepal, almost every day we have like 20, 30 birdies coming from Middle East, especially Qatar, almost every day. So my own experience, and then the experience of my countrymen, and we have to accept, as a filmmaker, we are very politically motivated. So that's everything came together, and the Red Suitcase was born out of it. Thank you.
Selman, I'll take off from Fidel's comments about we are political beings as filmmakers. Your film, Hesitation Wound, is about a defense attorney who's defending a murder accused. And she's also taking care of a very ailing mother who's on her deathbed. And through it's a morality play where she's caught between very, very crucial ethical choices. But at the same time, through her journey, trying to get her witnesses to court and so on, we actually get a mirror to the Turkish society and its institutions and the biases. So I wanted to know, when, as a filmmaker, when you're writing, it's true for all of you in certain extent, when you're writing films that are that question the status quo either explicitly or implicitly, are there kind of precautions that you need to take? And of course, each society is different, but yeah, when you kind of handle a subject that is delicate in its political or social implications, do you kind of think over yourself, or is there some kind of self-censorship that happens? Yeah, your thoughts.
There is no self-censorship because yes, it's political, it tells many things, but it is subtle and in the background. And this is not because I wanted to escape from something, but this is how I'm telling stories. And for me, this is an art form, and when this is a way I tell stories, and somehow it criticizes many things, but you need to think about it and you need to discuss about it. It's not on the noise. And I wanted to make a film that has a public feeling. What I mean is, in this film, every scene is taking place in public places. There is no any private place. There is only one private place that we could call, maybe, which is her car, which doesn't belong to her. So I wanted to make a film taking place in courthouse, jail, post office, hospital, grocery store, street. Literally, there is no any private place, because sometimes when you're stuck in between things, as she's going through in this film, and me personally and many people in Turkey, I think, feel that we are stuck, and we don't know what to do. And so when you have this kind of feeling in life, you also feel that you don't have a private and safe and secure place that you can, just, be in peace. So I wanted to make a film as audience stay in public places, because like when you go to courthouse there's a certain feeling, or when you go to hospital. For example, when I go to hospital, even if I'm sick, I feel better, because like there are some people worse than you, or when you go to courthouse, there's someone fighting, there's someone is gonna go to jail, there's something is happening there, and there's a feeling that is uneasy, and so yeah, I wanted to bring this feeling basically to audience too, so that can make questions. And I'm just gonna add something small about what you said also earlier. In my film also, I don't find myself and I don't put myself in a position that I know this kind of things and I'm telling you the answers. I'm telling because I don't know, and I'm like searching, I'm asking questions, and the only thing that I want that these questions I want audience to ask themselves too, so that there is a connection, but also I don't believe the films can answer this kind of big questions in just 2 hours. It's not easy, and I don't think it's even possible to tell answers and to find the meaning of life or whatever in 2 hours. But it's a really meaningful tool to, I think, ask questions and to think about it, to discuss about it. So yeah, that's what I was trying to do in the film.
Do we have any more press questions? If not, I had a question about. You're all showing a film at MAMI, which is not, in some sense, a festival outside your home. So I wanted to understand outside your cultures, if as it were. So is there something you think is lost when you're presenting, in terms of context and so on, when you're presenting a film at a festival to an audience which probably doesn't get all the cultural nuances? Is there something lost? Is there something gained in such a process when you're presenting it to an audience which is not familiar with the nitty-gritties of the culture from which?
Okay. Actually, this is a question that I've been thinking a lot, because like we are traveling different countries and watching our film with different audience in different culture. And there are some moments, especially, I'm curious if the audience is catching it or not. And I'm discussing this with my director friends too. And I see that they are curious too, especially when it comes to humor. Because, I'm doing some heavy drama films, but I'm trying to put some humor in it, And I don't want audience to miss it, because otherwise it's just, dry drama. And I'm curious if people catch it or not. And I realized that even though, and this is an experience that we are going through, even though we are doing, as you said, very local films about our cultures, I think it's true that when it becomes more local, people can like compare and connect with their culture better. And somehow I see that they also catch it. And especially I have to say that in Mumbai, Indian audience, it was such an experience, because the audience here is so reactive, so responsive. I never see such an audience anywhere. And I really, it's kind of bring to, sometimes like, we filmmakers bring the joy of cinema with sharing our films and traveling, But here I felt that this audience is so responsive that it brings the joy of cinema to me. So I was so happy to meet with the audience here, because like, I don't know, they laugh, they clap, they answer, they just feel the film, So I think it's really important. I'm so happy to see that there is a love of cinema here.
And I think what we also have to accept is that films, it's the celebration of humanity and human emotions, so to say. It's not possible to understand every cultural elements what we put in our films, but end of the day it's the human emotions, and the emotions it doesn't have a language or a culture, and that's what we take from cinemas.
What fascinated me that, in a particular scene, one audience from one part of the world, how they react, and another part of the world how they react, and both of the reactions are inspiring for me as a filmmaker. Sometimes when I see the particular scene that one audience is taking it very somberly and one audience is laughing, and that is the joy of making cinema, that they get nuances, they find their own experience and their own kind of reflection of thoughts and life into that film. And that is also, I think that that is also very kind of intriguing for me as a filmmaker. And as Fidel said, that human emotions, that those are universal. I mean, those will be touched by audiences. But audiences from different parts of the world, when they see the same film, they see it in a different light, and that is really beautiful.
Yes, this is indeed a challenge to go from the very personal and particular facts and to reach out. And as all the other friends were mentioning, in my case also, I've been traveling extensively and saw the film with different audiences. When we were making it, my feeling was that, okay, this is about a particular conflict between Iraq and Iran, and it's very, based in Abadan, as you said, in a very particular episode of that war and all. But the challenge was to convey the emotions and make it live through the drawings, moving drawings, as it is an animation medium. And one day I was sitting, you're engaged in the process, and it took us, 8 years, and also it's such a long process. But and one day towards the end of it, I was sitting in the mix auditorium, rewatching the film to check the sound mix, and all of a sudden I had the feeling that Omid, the character, was alive. I was like, yes, it's working. It's, and I thought it happened to me, so it must happen to the others. And then I started traveling, and the fact was that, yes, many people laughed, and sometimes less, sometimes more. Many cried, but yesterday here in Mumbai also, there was an amazing moment when one of the viewers, a young lady, came to me and she just couldn't talk. She was sobbing, and and it was. Always, every time, it is a surprise to see that what you've been telling about your very particular personal experience is reaching out so far, because as they all mentioned, it is the human base, and ultimately, I think we're there to raise awareness, to ask questions, not necessarily to answer them, but to send people back home, maybe to start reaching out for answers. It's a reflective process in order to be curious, to engage, thoughts, so that they go and look for things and think about the same problems or same interrogations on their own. And I would want to end this part, at least the answer to this question, with a very personal statement, because again, as throughout the process, I kept thinking that this is about a past conflict, but as I'm traveling with the film, there are more and more conflicts engaging in the world around us. And every time I was in Armenia, they're fighting, in Artsakh, Karabakh with Azerbaijan, and there are many other conflicts, the Ukrainian one and others still. And today, as I was walking into the room, I just heard that there was Israel had unfortunately rejected a humanitarian ceasefire. And this really, really, really makes me, not because of Israel, but just generally, the world, you know, and the state of it really interrogates me. That how is it that we do not learn the lessons from the past wars, you know, because before there was a war, there was peace. Why is it that we cannot simply think of that first state of things, you know, and today there are lives that are lost every day, every moment, because of this incapacity to think of, okay, let's just stop for a moment and think, you know. So I wanted to just, as a, maybe an omen, to put this out, and I hope that this message reaches out, you know, to stop the war, at least to talk, and let children live, let civilians live, not to kill them anymore.
On that note, I think, yeah, thank you. I want to thank all the filmmakers here for their very generous thoughts and kind of insight. And thank you so much for presenting your films. And we at MAMI wish you all the best with the screenings at MAMI and for the journey of the film from here on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.